can we be real for a moment? The women's strawweight division, it's been in a little bit of a hiatus. I mean, you got Wei Li, she's been running the division, but since the departures of the Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Rose Namajunas, Alexa Grasso, the division has been up in the air. You had Carla Esparza as your champion, but now we got some of these names who have been in the running, in the calling for some of the next contenders to truly fight for the belt. And that's what our main event is this weekend, folks. Amanda Lemos, Virna Jandiroba, that's what we're here to break down. Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. My name is Derick G. I am your host, and breaking it down with me, as always, the Santa Fe Bomber, the New Mexico native, AJ. We got a women's strawweight scrap on deck, and I truly do believe that this is going to be ushering in, I don't want to say the new generation, because these are established fighters, but this is like the next heap of legit contenders, champions, the whole nine. What are your thoughts, brother?
You hit the nail on the head, Derek. The ball keeps rolling in these divisions, and these females coming up this week for this fight card, man, are those next ones in line to be taken over. This fight's going to be proven who's next up. Maybe not next for the championship, but next to take over the division here in the near future.
If you're looking at Amanda Lemos, I mean, she arguably already kind of got her shot. Jandiroba's just been in the wings, just kind of waiting for the opportunity. But we got a lot of other good fights here to talk about as well. So, folks, you know what the deal is. We're going to jump into all of the betting goodness for you guys. But before we do that, we got a little bit that we need to break down. It's the accountability hour. AJ, let's go ahead and talk to the people. As you can see, folks, we have the UFC Denver poster down here below. This is the current record recap. I am up one pick on AJ, but you guys can see what it is right here. Really, the main thing that we want to get across is percentages. 60% plus is a must, right? AJ, we're right there, 59.83%. All the generous people in the world say that's 60%. That's what we call it. But we have one goal. AJ, what's the actual goal for percentage this year?
70%, folks. That's what we're shooting for up here.
This is the halfway point of the year, right? We're in July. We got 6 months to turn this ship around, and I'm confident that we're going to do it. But let's take a look at what the betting recap for UFC Denver was, folks. Again, we hold ourselves to a high standard, and we own it. So let's take a look at the consensus picks right here, AJ. Note that the one that's in white, that was our no contest, excuse me. So technically the bout doesn't count. So of the 4 fights, 3-1. We like 3-1 right there. All right, AJ, this is not a UFC Denver recap show. We're going to move right on along in 1 second, but be real with me. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Muslim Salikov. Robbery report, brother. What are we talking about? Talk to him.
Ooh, brother, this one had me maybe not up in arms, but definitely a little bit wanting to watch this fight a second time, because yeah, I'd definitely say get the shiesty mask on, and we're hitting up the boys, man.
Stick them up. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Nah, listen, at the end of the day, I think it was a good bet. It just went the wrong way, so it is what it is. We were 3-1 on our consensus picks, almost went the solid 4-0. When it went down to the actual picks right there, as you can see, it's pretty much the same thing right here. It got 4-1 for me, 3-2 for my man AJ right here. Props, parlays. If we're going to break it down, my parlay, or I shouldn't say my parlay, our parlay right here, one of the parlays, Namajunas Cortez over 3.5 rounds hits. Al Hassan versus Brundage enters round 2. Did not hit, but it did not hit because it was a no contest. So we're going to call that a wash. We did hit Agapova Santos over 1.5, Ponzinibbio Salikov over 1.5 rounds. That's pure money. You got some more plays for us this week, right, AJ?
Absolutely. A bunch of more plays coming at you this week, folks. Pay attention to that gold right there. We're going to keep hitting week after week, so make sure you're here.
That's right, and AJ's also on a hot streak. He got the big dub, Bonfim versus Angelusa over 1.5 rounds. It was minus money, but it's a dub. Moves him to a 50-50 slate on the board, 50%. For me, again, Ponzinibbio by points. I feel like I got robbed. Pull out the shiesty, pull out the goodness. That's 2 losses in a row for me, but I'm on the bounce back this week, folks. We coming, baby. So, hey, listen, this is your new revamped UFC bet sheet right here. And without any further ado, you know what time it is. Cue the music, people. This is what we're here for. UFC Vegas 94. It's a new week, a new mentality, and we're not thinking about the past. We're only thinking about moving forward. So, as you can see, folks, we have literally everything in store here. We're not going to spend too much time here. This is your perfect opportunity. This is the master file. This is the screenshot, if you will. AJ, consensus picks. You always give us a theme. There's only 3 of them this week. JunYong Park, Steve Garcia, Bruno Silva. Talk to us. What is the theme of the consensus picks this week?
The theme this week, Derek, is control, man. Whoever is able to control how that octagon flow is going, that's what's going to take this fight. And I think all 3 of these are perfect examples of exactly that.
Fair play. As I said again, it's only 3 consensus picks. There are 6 fights total. Y'all do the math. There's 3 contentious picks that we're going to have, but we'll talk about that in just one moment. Prop locks. AJ, let's start with yours. Talk to the people.
Man, Durden versus Silva right here, folks. This one, I'm expecting a grudge match, right? Durden trying to fight, trying to wrestle like he normally does. Bruno Silva being the wild man that he is. I expect a long, grueling fight from these two. It's going to be this one at the distance, going into distance, minus 170. Still minus money, but making you cash.
Looking for 2 dubs in a row, 2 weeks in a row, shall I say. I'm going the opposite approach, folks. We're not worrying about distance. We need things to just enter at least to the second part of the round before things get finished, because that's what I anticipate in this fight. Steve Garcia versus SeungWoo Choi, Sting Choi, to enter round 2, minus 104. Folks, I know Garcia got power in his hands. I know Choi is a sniper. They call him Sting for a reason. But to enter round 2, I think this is very favorable odds. Minus 104. Let's get back on the winning train right there. And then to wrap us up here, AJ, some parlays. Let's talk about the Miranda Maverick money line and Amanda Lemos money line. As you can see, if you take a look at my picks, I can't be in full agreement with one of our parlays here, but I'm definitely seeing the logic and I'm seeing the value. Just talk to the people really quickly. What makes this enticing?
What's enticing on this one, especially for Miranda Maverick? I mean, she's been on an absolute heater. It's hard to bet against her. And you're right, Derek, with that Lemos pick, it is a contentious pick, but I think speed's going to come into play here. We'll break it down a little bit further, but I do think this is a one to look at.
All right, fair play. The other one that we got, JunYong Park, the Iron Turtle, and a Cody Durden money line right there, plus 198 together. Now, this is really interesting because if you look at a consensus pick, Bruno Silva is the consensus pick right there. So this is a value play again. Cody Durden is the favorite right here. JunYong Park is the favorite. If we combine them together and the strategies go the way that most people would seem for them to go, that's the parlay that we like. Again, a lot of different plays, a lot of different maneuvers, and we're going to give you all the context here in just one moment. So, folks, take your screenshots. We're going to give you the whole entire breakdown, and you know what's next. It's time to do a little bit of a main card breakdown, AJ. Let's get straight to it.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
All right, folks, you guys know the deal. Let me go ahead and solo out real quick. First off, if you're not subscribed at this section of the program, I don't know what you're doing. What was a small group? What was a small gathering turned into a militia, turned into an armada, and now we're running things up, man. 1.45K subscribers here for the Bloody Water Podcast Army. That's right. That's what we are, an army. So if you're not subscribed, please do so. Tell a friend to tell a friend, because we are still your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. But what we're going to break down here today is we're going to jump on all 6 main card fights, starting with the main event all the way down. Then we're going to hit sleepers. We got some news and notes and a prelim pour over for you guys. So no need to waste any more time. Let's jump straight into things, AJ. You know how it goes. We just mentioned value and Amanda Lemos being on the side of value. And while I absolutely agree with that, it's hard to capitalize on that value when you have such a stifling, smothering fighter like Virna Jandiroba against you. What are the major discrepancies in fight styles between these two fighters?
Oh, well, we got a very quick striker who likes to utilize movement, and on the side of Lemos, and then with the Jandiroba, you got somebody who's going to walk you down, control you, put the pressure to you, try to get this fight to the ground. And it's like you said, Derek, smother the hell out of you until she wins the fight.
And that's the hard part, though, right? Because you could argue for both fighters. All right, well, if this thing stays standing, I really like Amanda Lemos here. Like it's not even close. I think it's unfair, really, if it stays standing. If this gets to the ground, same situation. It's not even close. It's like Jandiroba is just going to run all over her, in my opinion, just from what we've seen. If Wei Li, right, the beloved strawweight champion, Zhang Wei Li, if she can smother Amanda Lemos the way that she did, although I don't believe she got the finish, if I remember correctly. Yeah, she didn't get the finish over the course of 25 minutes. If she can do that to Lemos, Jandiroba, who is willing to take a similar approach, but is a much higher level, let me mark my words. I was going to say a higher level finisher, but you see a lot of decisions on her record. Let's just say the submission artist is Jandiroba. I mean, do you think that Amanda Lemos' defense proved enough in the Wei Li fight to say, hey, I have some extra confidence if Jandiroba is able to take it to the ground?
Yeah, not really, Derek, to be completely frank, man. A couple fights had me worried. Not only the Wei Li fight, but also the way Mackenzie Dern was able to control Amanda Lemos. And Lemos won that fight, but the vast majority of the time, she's just sitting on her back, trying to find a way out, looking for ways, and that's a bad view for the judges. I can see if Jandiroba gets this fight to the ground, I can see a lot of control time coming. The question is, man, at the start of every single round, how's it going to work? And when Lemos keeps getting into that style of fight, goes on with the gas tank that she has, will she be able to outpace Jandiroba with the movement that she has?
That's a great question. So let's jump into the odds about this and really break it down. As you can see, the opening odds, minus 150 for Jandiroba, plus 110 comeback for Lemos, which you look at the Lemos side and you're like, okay, plus money. I like the value there. Current odds hasn't shifted much. Minus 130 for Jandiroba, still plus 110 for Lemos. So where the value comes in from the Lemos side, I think is early, right? The earlier the fight is, the fresher she is. Even though it's going to be tough because they're not going to be sweaty and slippery. Her rooted Muay Thai stance, we talk about it every time, very rooted deeply into the ground, is going to be very beneficial. The only worry that I have that comes is in order to sit down on your shot, you have to plant your feet. If you plant your feet, you open yourself up to a single attempt, any type of entry from Jandiroba. Jandiroba is not Mackenzie Dern, and she's not going to come at you all-fledged, bat out of hell crazy and then take you down. Her shots are much more conventional, and she actually does shoot out from a little bit further, which I can see another counter setup coming from Amanda Lemos. Let's talk about the pathways to victory for Amanda Lemos. Let's say this gets to round 2, round 3 right here. Damage trumps all. So if Jandiroba's holding, hugging, and not able to secure a finish or elbows off the top or something crazy like that, you can argue if Lemos is able to drop her, if she's able to hit her with some damaging shots, maybe cut her up a little bit, this could be a lot more interesting of a fight than we probably imagine. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely, Derick. If Amanda Lemos is able to maintain the range that she's comfortable at and then avoid the strikes that are coming back, we've seen Jandiroba overextend on her punches, especially in the combos. When she's throwing that straight right, she'll leap out. And like you said, also, she shoots from far. She takes a little bit further shots out there. And I can see Lemos, if she's able to time that movement of Jandiroba going forward, she's able to land some counter strikes. We've seen her have power in that right hand as well.
Now, one major question that I do have for both competitors right here is that we say we're kind of crowning and hailing, saying this is the next generation, this is the new set of champions right here. We say that given the state of the division. Listen, man, Lemos is 36, Jandiroba's 37, if I recall correctly. No, actually opposite. Lemos is 37, Jandiroba 36. What are we really making? 115 pounds, you're starting to get to the 35 to 40 range right here. Is this matchup taking place because they're saying we need something out of you guys like ASAP because your window is closing?
Absolutely, Derick. I mean, if there's no time, or if this isn't the time isn't going to be in a couple years when these ladies are 40 years old, right? I mean, the only reason we have those kind of fighters in the female division is because they're the Holly Holmes. They're the greats of the era, or the eras, I should say. And that's why they're still around and still being, acclimated or pulled into fighting. Whereas this now, I mean, I don't see a lot of people clamoring for an Amanda Lemos or a Jandiroba fight here in 3 or 4 years, unless they're able to make the splash right now.
And to be honest, just to be fair, right? Like, I'm probably clamoring for Lemos a little bit more than Jandiroba with the fight style, but that's neither here nor there. All right, there's juice on these props right here, and I want to know where the juice sits in your camp. I know who you're picking. You know who I'm picking, but we're not talking about who we're picking. We're talking about where is the juice. And the juice comes in 2 props. For Amanda Lemos, plus 205 TKO. Oh, my God. You look at that, and you start drooling. You're like, what? 205 for that? On the other hand, plus 215 submission prop for Virna Jandiroba. It's hard because we can go in circles all day long about this, man. But the question is, either Lemos can take the shot, can hit Jandiroba. Jandiroba could still scramble somehow and try to grab her, take her down. But if Jandiroba gets a hold of Lemos, we've seen from past fights, there's a very likely chance that Lemos is not getting up. So where does the juice lie?
Absolutely, Derick. I mean, if you hit the nail on the head with the Lemos side, you're absolutely drooling at the mouth, groveling at plus 205 TKO, because I can see that being a very likely outcome if Lemos is able to hold distance. But on the Jandiroba side, not only plus 215 submission because of what you're talking about, but also that plus 240 decision. It comes into the same camp because even if Jandiroba isn't able to finish Lemos in a submission, she's still going to have all that control time. So there's a lot of juice there for if you're Jandiroba better. I'm still rocking the other side though.
And as you can see, when I pull up the big screen right here, if you're looking at the over, it's 2.5 rounds minus 180 for over 2.5 rounds. So I think that what the odds makers are saying is like someone is going to get finished from the thought process that we're taking here. Do you not have any confidence that this can go over 2.5? Because if you do have confidence, minus 180 for a women's fight like this over 2.5, you have to play that.
Absolutely, Derick. And what we've seen before is normally this odd would be at like a 4.5, right? You're seeing a minus 180 for a 4.5, 2.5 rounds for this female fight. You're jumping on that all day long.
All day long. All right, folks. So with that being said, these are the plays that we got right here for the main event, Amanda Lemos versus Virna Jandiroba. It is a contentious pick. I like Jandiroba. And folks, if you guys are tailing me, we're riding one of 2 plays. We're riding the submission play or we're riding the just pure money line. minus 130 currently as it stands for Virna Jandiroba. That is value. I am willing to pay that price, and if you're backing me, you should be willing as well. AJ, clean yours up, and then let's move to the next.
If you're rocking with Lemos over here, man, obviously, like we said before, she's in the parlay as the money line. But if you're really looking to put some money, if you're confident on this one, plus 205 TKO Amanda Lemos.
All right, fair play. That's your main event, folks. And like I said, it's going to definitely dictate what the future of this strawweight division is going to be looking like. All right, straight to a co-main event. You got two fighters. You got two fighters coming off of losses, really more than anything else. Brad Tavares versus JunYong Park. Now, the Tavares loss against Gregory Rodriguez, not nearly as unexpected, if you will, than the JunYong Park loss to Andre Muniz. So the Iron Turtle, we know that he's kind of one of these like soft-spoken, undervalued fighters, in my opinion, man. I think that he doesn't get nearly the amount of love that he should, and he has a really, really tough test in front of him as a bounce back fight, if you will, against the mean fighting Hawaiian spirit in Brad Tavares. So open line, minus 165 favorite for the Iron Turtle, plus 120 for Tavares. If we're looking at what the current odds are right now, plus 135 for Tavares, and then minus 160 for the Iron Turtle. What number do you like better?
Ooh, man. It's hard, Derek. So be completely upfront. This fight right here took me the longest to pick. So I can see value on both sides. Would you say plus 135 for Brad Tavares? I mean, not a lot of times. We've seen Brad Tavares kind of struggle in certain aspects, but this is a fight that's pretty winnable for him. I think there's a lot more juice on that side.
Well, let me just pull the screen up right here, man. Let's do a little comparison and contrasting right here. So if you're looking at numbers, the thing that stands out to me, even though like the number doesn't really stand out, it does when you take it in context. Significant strikes landed per minute, 3.38 for Tavares, 4.5 for JunYong Park. The reason this stands out to me is because while we have seen an incredible amount of durability from Brad Tavares, I know he's been knocked out a couple times as of late, so that might sound kind of funny, but like throughout the career, he's been a very durable fighter. JunYong Park has found himself in that same boat, who has been able to close the distance, kind of pressure, close that distance, and then mix it up, whether he's going to stick you with the jab and just poke at you for 15 minutes, or if he's going to turn that into a shot, work his game, ground and pound type situation right there. So when you have Brad Tavares, who is notoriously, that's not how we're supposed to be, sorry. There we go. When you have a Brad Tavares, AJ, who is notoriously known for having fantastic takedown defense, and then you got a JunYong Park who he's not limited to just the takedown. He could sit there and he could box with you all day. I just think that there's too much overwhelming data that's going to be affecting Brad Tavares versus what Brad Tavares could present to JunYong Park. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, Derek. More tools in the tool belt are coming out for JunYong Park. And one thing I wanted to touch on with the stats you were showing was a 4.53 significant strikes per round or per minute, whatever it was. What they didn't count is JunYong Park is also throwing 37 jabs in your face between that time as well. So you're right. There's a lot of data that's going to have to be thrown at Brad Tavares. And you're right. Like, there's so many. This is a hard one for me because all the things that Brad Tavares has, like the durability, the power, the willingness to engage in a style of fight that's maybe not advantageous for him, but he can get the win in it, are all disadvantages when you're fighting a guy like JunYong Park, which makes it very, very difficult.
And I think it's pretty much as simple as that, man. So when we take a look at what the props are looking like, now our assessment, our job is to find the value. Where's the juice? And let's squeeze it, right? So if I'm looking at the JunYong Park side, there's one play that just makes total sense to me. I'm not a believer in Brad Tavares is done and he has no chin. I don't believe that, man. I don't think it's true. I like plus 225 decision prop for JunYong Park. I think that is a play that I'm actually surprised that the number is what it is. Because if you look at the number for Brad Tavares plus 130, where does that number come from?
I was hoping you caught my confusion, Derek, because I do not get that at all. I definitely thought the numbers would be flipped, more of a plus 150, plus 170 for JunYong Park because of the durability of Brad Tavares. Maybe that's the case of the what have you done for me lately, and people can't get past that Gregory Rodriguez TKO.
So, yeah, fair play. So with that being said, I'm jumping all over that decision prop for JunYong Park. But if you're saying, hey, listen, Brad Tavares might be a tougher outing, I don't think there is anything wrong. AJ, do I have to play it again? Let me see. So hold on. Let me find it again because I have to mention it. Minus 160, JunYong Park, man. I don't see anything wrong with that ticket price. To be completely frank, I think this is a spot where he should be minus 200, minus 250. What do you think?
I agree with you. I mean, I definitely minus 200 right in there, minus 180. I'm surprised the odds haven't swollen that much. And it definitely goes back to what we were saying before, kind of the unrespected JunYong Park. This might be the fight to wake people up.
That's right, man. Put a little respect on my man's name, but this is where we eat, in the places where the masses do not have respect. So I respect it. JunYong Park, that is the play. That's the consensus pick. And with that being said, we'll move right on along to the next bout. Steve Garcia versus Sting Choi. We got two Chois on the card, and Sting Choi is a special individual right here. It's just a shame that he has a matchup against such a tough individual like Steve Garcia, because this is going to be a firefight. Featherweight contest, minus 140 open for Garcia, plus 105 for Sting Choi. And if we're looking at the live odds again, let me pull it up. We got minus 150 for Garcia, plus 125 for Sting Choi. So to open this up, AJ, there's an interesting contrast, because what do you think of when you think of SeungWoo Choi? Like what type of fighter do you think of when he pops in your mind? What do you visualize?
Fast, blitzy, likes to utilize range, kind of stays out at afar, kind of has that really karate style where his legs are wide, bouncy attack.
I think the same exact thing, a little less on the karate side, but I think the nickname is there for a reason. You call him Sting for a reason, because he does his work at distance, and he's really, really good if he could walk you down and he can apply pressure. But when you put him on the back foot, we see a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of his fluency in his attacks. The chins go sky high, things start getting winged. And when I was looking at this fight, I was like, well, that's what Steve Garcia is going to do to you. All 15 minutes of this fight, he's going to be in your face and he's going to kill or be killed. That's his fight style right here. So I immediately think Steve Garcia, massive advantage. Then I look back at his last fight against Melky Costa and I say, oh, yeah. This man is really one of those violent type fighters, right? Does Sting Choi have the chin currently that we've seen like over the course of his last couple of fights? Has he exhibited the chin to make you trust in him being able to survive a firefight against Steve Garcia?
No. Not at all, Derek. I mean, I was looking at it right now, and the only loss by KO in his last 10 was his the Michael Trezano fight, right? And he's lost a couple others. There, he does have the power. He can lose a submission fight. There's ways in which he does, but with the way that Steve Garcia sets up his shots, right, controls the distance, lets you feigns you into a lure of safety at your distance you're at, and then hits you with a counter strike. That's where the knockouts come from for the Garcia side, right? That, like you're saying, that willingness to engage in that crazy style of fight, that right there, along with the pressure that Steve Garcia is going to put, I think is going to overwhelm SeungWoo Choi right here. And it's hard to say, man. I like Sting, but I do think Steve Garcia has all the technique and the timing to be able to get this fight done.
Garcia also fights at a much higher clip, right? If we're taking a look over here at the, not at this sheet, but if we pull up Steve Garcia and Sting Choi, 4.85 significant strikes landed per minute, 3.48. Now, of course, this number is going to be skewed because he had a fight where he just got a lot of shots off. It doesn't mean every fight is this way, but definitely skews the numbers. Is something to take into account. Also interesting, they're both the same height, man. I don't know why. For when I think Steve Garcia, I think a small, short guy, and he's not. He's a big guy, you know? So dangerous fighter, similar age right here, and he can also take you down as well, right? That's not particularly something that you're seeing in the bag of Sting Choi. I think it's as simple as this, man. I'm not saying that Choi doesn't have a chin, but we have seen him get kind of knocked around in a couple of his fights. He survives a lot of them, right? But we have seen it. So if that's going to be the play, and you're going to be presenting Steve Garcia nothing more than I'm going to try to counter you and I'm trying to play the game of distance and find those shots. Can he find the counter shot? Absolutely. But I think that Steve Garcia is absolutely the play right here, and really interested to know what you think about that plus 120 TKO on the side of Garcia.
I was looking at it, Derek. I was very much looking at it. The problem is I could see Steve Garcia trying to find a different way because of the power that SeungWoo Choi presents. But man, if we're talking a short distance fight, right? First round and a half gets us into the second. I see a knockout coming.
7 of Steve Garcia's 8 last fights have been won via knockout. So it's hard for me to play the decision game, which is also interesting that it's plus 600 decision for Choi, plus 425 for Garcia. That was a number that really, really threw me off. Everything here, everything on the prop side for Steve Garcia, aside from the TKO, just made me really, really take a step back and be like, hold on, why is Steve Garcia getting so much respect? Because I remember the day and age where Sting Choi was a real problem. So I'm just like, well, what happened to that, right? I think it's just a what have you done for me lately, though. You take a look at it, you're 2-3 in your last 5. Garcia, he's definitely been fighting on a high caliber. So I think Steve Garcia is the play. I think the physicality is going to be too much and the power is going to be a little bit too much, but let's see what Choi has to offer. Do you got anything else on this one?
Nah, brother, this one's going to be a fun fight, folks. Don't blink. I'm expecting this one to end early.
but to enter round 2.
Not
and
too
then
early.
end early. That's right.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the prop block, baby. Let's go. All right, moving right on along. All right, AJ, don't get me wrong. I love a good fight. I love a good fight of some dudes who have been around and made it their way back. Shout out Kurt Holobaugh. But when I saw that Kaynan, and forgive us, folks, Kruschewsky, we're just going to give it a shot. If you win, we remember the name, baby. We know he's a winner, just not in the UFC yet. But when you have a dude who came in so hyped, the way that Kruschewsky did, he came in, fought our boy Elvis Brenner, right? We're a big fan of this guy on the program, and he got clocked, man. You know, you got hit in the back of the ear. It happens, right? You got slumped. All right, hype train derailed. Now you get Kurt Holobaugh, and you're still a favorite. And I think it's because Kurt Holobaugh's last fight, he let a lot of bettors down, I should say, right there. I thought that the pick was right against Trey Ogden. The methodology wasn't. So let's talk about it. From a striking perspective, you have everything to love about Kruschewsky right here. And I know this is your avenue, AJ, so go ahead, talk to the people about what pops off the page to you.
Man, Kruschewsky, what I'm most excited for is to actually see this dude on a full camp at his right weight class. Because, yeah, he got knocked out bad by our boy Elvis Brenner. But now he's right. He's going to be getting back, and he needs his get-back fight. The thing I like most about Kruschewsky is he likes to pressure, man. He likes to put you in a bad position and do damage, right? Get things done. Very good striker. Likes to put that pressure on. I'm excited to see how he actually looks in this and give us a kind of a deeper view on what he can do inside the big octagon.
He's a big guy. He reminds me a lot of Amanda Lemos, and I know it's a weird comparison, but the rooted stance, he's firmly planted. He's got that Muay Thai going, and then he'll just kind of... Here's the only problem that I don't like about Kruschewsky right here, man. He follows a lot. He doesn't cut off the cage very well from just like what I've seen in his fights, and I don't think you're going to have to worry too much against a 37-year-old Kurt Holobaugh. But I think that this is definitely going to be a showcase bout right here. This is an opportunity, or at least it appears to be an opportunity, where Kruschewsky can ultimately put himself in a position to say, highlight reel. Let's see what I can get done here. Now, here's the thing, man. I think Holobaugh, and he has been this way for a while. I mean, you look at his last couple, right? We're 3-2 in our last 5, but against Thud Hubbard specifically, right? That fight, I was like, man, what an upset right here. He came in, I think, at dog odds, and he got the job done. So again, when you find yourself at dog odds against a guy who is not proven in the UFC, I see plus 120 at that open for Holobaugh, and I say, ooh, that's juicy. I take a look at the current odds, AJ, and I say, plus 110, minus 130 for Kruschewsky. The odds are flipping. So before it does a complete line flip, I know your pick is Kruschewsky, but what do you think about Holobaugh here?
I mean, it's rough because I like Holobaugh, right? I was with you in that Trey Ogden pick. I think it was a good call, but it's hard to bet on somebody, like we said, that's above 35 in any of these fights going forward, especially when you leave and you come back. There needs to be a moment for Holobaugh that kind of gets me back on his side of realizing that he's solidified, right? That he's back in the game, right? And I'm not saying we're going to see a run to the top for Holobaugh going forward, but moments of where I don't know how to describe it, Derek, but where he looks, he's not passion, but he has that flow state, right? Like he's back in the game again. We see a Kurt Holobaugh who was kicking ass, right? Back, what was it, 2017. I was thinking it was more like 2020. That's how long this dude's been fighting. But still, if Kurt Holobaugh is able to control the cage, get back to lumping people up, he looks good.
This is the main point that I'm going to encapsulate everything you said. I'm going to say it in like a sentence right here. Kurt Holobaugh is a value play right here because Kaynan Kruschewsky, apologies, while the man pops off the page, he hasn't quite done it against established talent yet. Kurt Holobaugh has fought established talent for the past 10 years, you know what I mean? Plus, right? So I think that for Kruschewsky, this is totally a showcase bout. The value in the betting comes from the perspective of Kurt Holobaugh. I personally, folks, and this is going to be my disclaimer, AJ, you tell the people to do what they want, but if you're tailing me, I say this is arguably a bout that I would actually stay away from. But given that this is a competition and we got a shiny gold belt on the line that I want another one of, right? I'm going to go Kurt Holobaugh value play and see if we can come up. So that's my perspective on it. I'm going to take it decision plus 300, but I would honestly just take the pure dog money line right there. AJ, go ahead and clean yours up.
I'm with you on the stay away, Derek, if you're actually putting money on this, but I like Kruschewsky going forward, just picking it for the picks, right? I'm expecting him to actually show up. This is a prove-it match, but there's so many unknowns about exactly how it's going to go. Like I said, it's a stay away. Either way, I'm rocking Kruschewsky for the picks.
Another contentious pick, but we got another one in the bag for you, folks. All right. Cody Durden, Bruno Silva. You got a ranking on the line right here. Cody Durden wants every piece of everybody in the flyweight division. And coming off of that loss, both of these fighters actually lost against Tagir Ulanbekov. Coming off that Ulanbekov loss, Cody Durden is kind of, you get sent to the back of the queue a little bit. And you have to remake up some of the work that you had put in. So he went from being on a fantastic 4-fight win streak, couldn't quite make it 5. And I think another couple of wins will put him back where he needs to be. Now, Bruno Silva, this guy's kind of been out of the picture for a little bit, AJ. His last fight was back in March of last year. It's been over a year since the last time that he fought. And what's crazy is that you don't see a guy have so much hype and go on such a run. 3 nasty finishes in a row, right? And then just kind of like fall off the face of the earth. Do you know, did something happen to him? I should have did my research before. Did something happen to him? Do we know?
I should have done the research too, Derek. No, I'm not sure. We've been talking about Bruno Silva for a while too. That's the thing. Even with the Tyson Nam fight, like, he looks good. I'm curious if we can ever find that out.
Now, it doesn't really matter because you're matched up against a really tough Cody Durden right here. But a lot of people are questioning Cody Durden because they're saying, all right, well, the way that you kind of got manhandled around by Tagir wasn't the greatest look. Tagir's a big dude for the weight class, though, right? So you have to take that into consideration. Bruno Silva, the opposite of that, folks. Let's pull up the big screen one more time, and let's take this fight off the bout. There we go. Major discrepancy. 5'4" is Bruno Silva. 5'7" is Cody Durden. Don't get me wrong, man. He's not towering over the man, but Cody Durden went from being the small guy against Ulanbekov to being now the big guy in this fight right here. We know what Cody Durden's all about. It's about the grappling. We know what Bruno Silva's all about. He wants to hit you with the big shot, but this dude he does have some sick grappling as well. So it's not like he's not a fish out of water in the grappling department. This is not going to be a striker versus grappler matchup right here. So if you had to explain this to the people and see where the edge is laid, AJ, like, where would you kind of give the edge to each respective fighter?
Well, on the Durden side, Derek, I would go with the pressure that he's going to present, right? He's always going to be that indomitable force, pushing the pressure on you, always in your face, grinding you down. And if you're looking at Bruno Silva, it's in the power and the wildness, right? The things that you don't see coming in that chaotic in the chaotic, fight, in the instances, that's where Bruno Silva survives, or that's where he thrives, I should say, in actually finding ways to win this fight. I like him on that chaotic, that wild man part, but I do think this is going to be a very hard fight for both individuals in order to gain ground, right? Trying to actually maul their way into controlling it. That's what I think is going to be the hardest fight for these ones.
And the reason that I was conflicted on this fight as well is because I look at Cody Durden and I say, you know what, just inherently, that's the guy who I want to pick. He's the betting favorite. I like the grappling ability. I like his ability to show heart, determination, fight out of hard submissions, and just win a fight. Sometimes that's what it's about. Just win the fight. It doesn't matter how you do it, just do it. And then I look at Bruno Silva and I say, all right, small but mighty fighter right here. But the thing that's going to make it hard for Cody Durden is that if he does not control him, if he does not get him close and say, come here, I got to hug you, I got to keep you tight, I just think he's going to give him fits, man. I think Bruno Silva's power is going to be overwhelming. And that's the guys that I like in the fight, where it's like they're making you clinch. They turn you into a wrestler, even though he's already a wrestler. They're like, I'm going to make you shoot for your life because you do not feel comfortable standing in front of me. And I think that's what Bruno Silva presents. The dude just has massive power. So it's not super cut and dry, if you will, but I just think it's as simple as that, man. Bruno Silva, pure value play. Again, looking at the current odds, he's a minus 105 dog, minus 115 favorite in Cody Durden. So this is going to about a coin flip. And if it's a coin flip, give me the knockout artist. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, Derek, and especially because, like I said, this is my prop lock. It's going to go the distance I'm expecting, and I think that Bruno Silva is going to have the bigger moments, the more oohs and ahs from the crowd, and having that impact, right? The damage does the most. I think that's what's going to get him done.
And here's the good news, folks, is at the end of the day, if you see a conflict of interest and you're like, well, you guys are going Durden for a parlay, but you like Silva for a pick, just bet this thing to go over, man. I mean, what's the over right here? Let me pull up the over here, AJ, so that the people can be informed. Over for Cody Durden versus Bruno Silva, 2.5 rounds, minus 220 on a flyweight over. What are we talking about? You smash that thing and you parlay it with something else too. Come on, bro. So, all right, we like that, but I do have to ask you the question, man. Bruno Silva, TKO, plus 600. I know we just laid out all our evidence for what we're picking and why we're picking it, but you cannot help to at least just like double take and be like, wait, hold on. Plus 600 TKO? Whoa. Even if it's a pure hedge, even if it's just a 1 out of 100 shot, I feel like you got to take it.
Absolutely, you take that, man. Plus 600 on a knockout artist with bombs in his hands that's super explosive all day long. Plus 600 makes a lot of sense.
All right, but we gave you guys the real logic behind it. You just see some value and you got to jump on it sometimes. All right, folks, to the opening bout of the night. Dooho Choi versus Bill Algeo. You got the Korean Wonder Boy versus Senior Perfecto. There we go. Apologies. Shout out to Bill Algeo, man. My brain is a little bit fuzzy the same way that he was against Kyle Nelson, getting knocked around the cage, which is the first thing that we got to bring up, man. Rough outing in his last one. We know how good this dude is. We know that he brings it time and time again. I think he got clipped and he just wasn't able to recover, but he never went down, AJ. And you have to respect a man for not going down. A lot of people called it a bad stoppage, suspicious stoppage, all that. I think Kyle Nelson did his job. The referee did his job, and Algeo just needs to get one back. Well, you have an opportunity. You got name value, but let's be real. I know Dooho Choi. You know Dooho Choi, but I feel like a lot of the new fans, the post-COVID fans who just got into the UFC, they probably have no idea who this dude is. What do you think?
Probably, Derek, and I'm glad you said something before that. We got two Chois on this one because most people probably know Sting. Dooho is also very, very dangerous.
Not just very, very dangerous, man. If you look at his last 10, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He went on a 6-fight KO streak. Then he had the Hall of Fame fight with Cub Swanson that he lost. Let's not literally inducted into the Hall of Fame. Knocked out against Jeremy Stevens. Knocked out against Charles Jourdain. Got a majority draw against Kyle Nelson right there. So, are we apples to oranges? He did a draw against Nelson. Algeo got stopped against Nelson. Trajectory-wise, who are you favoring in this matchup? I'll decide.
Ooh, trajectory-wise, Derek, it's hard not to still go trajectory-wise for Bill Algeo. I see more of a future in his kind of career and path he's taken. Unfortunately, Dooho Choi just doesn't get the respect he deserves, even with a Hall of Fame fight, like you're saying.
Yeah. But then again, you think about it, you're like, all right, the Hall of Fame fight was in 2016 against Cub Swanson. Listen, if you're fighting dudes who was back in WEC or whatever the case may be, let's pump our brakes a little bit. But this dude's definitely got some heat under him. We just have to take a look at the big board right now, man, and let's be real for a second. Featherweight fight, 33 years old. Not bad for Choi. 35 for Bill Algeo. So this is another one of those where we got some of the smaller weight classes, but they're getting up there in age, man. Both high-level strikers. That's the only problem that I see here on Choi's side. I think Choi is such a vicious striker. I think the striking defense is the part that needs to get cleaned up. But guess what, AJ? Same thing for Bill Algeo. So is this a war of attrition? Is this a matter of who gets their clock cleaned first? Like what's the big X factor that differentiates these fighters?
I think the big X factor, Derek, with both of these style of fighters is who's the one that's going to stay calm and stay technical longer, right? Like if you're right, if you're Dooho Choi, chin starts popping up, hands start getting a little wild, right? I can see bad things happening. And again, on the Bill Algeo side, that we've seen that chin get tested, and you're right, he didn't go down, but he started crumbling, hands start dropping. We can see flaws on both sides. It's the one who's able to breathe a little bit, calm down, find those moments and hit your shots. That's who's the ones who's going to take over.
I'm looking at well-roundedness in this one. That's really my main thing. I look at Choi, vicious striker. We know this. This is not uncommon knowledge. But if both of these fighters can get knocked out, then I have to start thinking about what's the second level of damage. And for Bill Algeo, for Choi, it's takedowns, right? He can get you at a takedown. For Bill Algeo, though, man, it's the jiu-jitsu, right? So it's being able to just kind of mix things up and use jiu-jitsu to get back up to your feet, things of that nature. Versus Nelson, if you watch that Nelson fight against Choi in that first round, man, Choi just throws like a lazy kick, gets spun around, Nelson takes his back, picks him up, and drops him on his head, right? And I'm just like, it was one tiny mistake that changed the whole trajectory of that round. If Bill Algeo can do that, but Choi can't do that to Algeo, then we're thinking along the same lines there. So ultimately, what I think about this matchup right here, the plays that I'm thinking about is I'm thinking distance plays, right? I like the over in this fight, which if you take a look at what it is right now, back up to the big screen, you will see that the over for this fight is 2.5 rounds. It's minus 180 for 2.5 rounds, which is another one of these, man, where similar to, I mean, listen, this is the same exact odds as the main event. So similarly, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh man, minus 180 for over 2.5 rounds to go the distance on this one. You're not seeing a ton of Bill Algeo knockout fights. Choi hasn't been able to get that crazy knockout streak or anything like that, man, since back in 2016. So you kind of want to bank on a decision here. Am I right?
If you're not banking on, if you're not banking on a decision, Derek, you're definitely banking on that minus 180 over 2.5. I know the fight's almost over, only 2.5 minutes left in the fight, but still, I think that's the highest outcome for sure.
So one more question for you here, AJ. And the question becomes, if you're a Dooho Choi and you're saying, man, I really need to win. Like, I really need to win. I'm on a 3-fight losing streak, and then my last fight was a draw. I got to get in the win column. I might not be able to go zombie style and just say, come here, what's up? Well, someone's getting knocked out. Like, you can't just do that, right? So that's why I'm also saying decision, because I think he's going to be a little more tentative. I need to win. This is livelihoods on the line. Algeo, on the other hand, I don't think he's in a I need to win type situation. I think that he can lose and still be like, all right, you know what? We can live the fight another day. So I think that the ability to balls to the wall is more on the Algeo camp. I think the tentativeness is going to be on Choi. I don't want to discount Choi, and I want you to let me know right here, AJ. Am I overlooking Choi? Am I taking a recency bias and overlooking Choi here?
No, I don't think so, Derick, because I agree with you on the approach that Choi needs to take. I just think I would use different wording. Instead of tentative, I'd be a little more methodical, right? Slower and more methodical in the way he's going to fight. And that's how I see Choi actually winning this fight, is staying calm, finding his moments, and actually testing that chin of Algeo. But you're right, Derick. It goes back to what you were saying before. Algeo does have more path to move forward. This needs to be the moment for Choi. So the gas needs to be hit and taking that approach.
That was much more eloquent than I ever could have put it. So shout out right there. It's another contentious pick, but that is your pick right there for the opening bout of the night over here, UFC Vegas 94. All right, folks, that was everything that we needed to cover right there, but we are not to the most exciting part of the program, the part that you should look forward to the most. It is the unknowns of today, but the stars of tomorrow. It is the golden voice of the Bloody Water podcast, folks. It is.
It's time for some fight night.
And if you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
You heard the man, Bobby King Green. It's time for some sleepers here. And we're not gonna mince any words. We're just gonna get straight to business. And AJ, you already know what's up. You are up next. I don't even explain it, brother. Like I said, unknowns of today, stars of tomorrow. What do we got?
We're starting off, man. Haider Ramil versus JunYong Lee, man. 9-0 versus 11-1. This one's a lot of fun, man. We got if you watched Haider Ramil, if you're familiar at all, you know he had an amazing performance against Fernie Garcia. Like I said, 9-0, but he's going up against Lee, man. This dude's a beast, an absolute beast in the road to the UFC. Has had a little trouble in the UFC as he's going, but very, very technical. We got 13 finishes combined for both of these fighters. And folks, it's a little bit of a cheat this week. There's a reason that they're the featured prelim. This fight's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you pay attention.
Let's see what the Tapology folks think. Oh, they think that's actually surprising. They think that's going to be a landslide for Lee, not even close. And if I look at the actual betting odds, hold on. We need to make an assessment right here. The betting odds have... Okay, minus 200 plus 170. Okay, I guess that's fair. I was like, that's a little crazy. That was at open, though. I didn't check current odds. All right, folks, that's a banger right there. AJ said he's cheating. Well, I cheat every now and then, too. Listen, they didn't have a lot of sleepers here. We provide you guys value for the Bloody Water podcast here. But listen, this is just a blast from the past. Brian Kelleher versus Cody Gibson. All that I want you to know is that Brian Kelleher, coming off of 3 losses, this is not the first stint in the UFC, by the way. He needs one bad, right? So I think he's going to come out and he's going to give it everything that he got against a Cody Gibson, who same trajectory, 2 losses. You need one. Sometimes these are where these sleepers come from. It comes from desperation. It comes from 2 men locked in a cage. You hear the old saying all the time. If you are locked in there and only one of us can come out, I'm the one who wants to come out, not you. You know what I mean? So I think that this is going to be a banger. It's going to be a fun fight overall. If we're taking a look at the methodologies, a lot of people are picking Gibson. I think understandably so. He's the fresher fighter in a lot of people's eyes, but I don't think you can ever discount Brian Boom Kelleher because this dude brings it every day of the year. 37 years old for Kelleher, 36 for Gibson. It should be a fun one. I'm not going to elaborate anymore, folks. Just take the trust, take the reputation of the Bloody Water podcast, and go watch you a banging fight right there. All right, folks. So that's your sleeper. And now we should probably move on over to a couple of news and notes. Now, here's the good news, AJ, is that we have a little bit of time. So I think that I have a couple quick news and notes that I just want to hit real fast. And then we might cover a prelim or two. Like I said, there's really not a lot that I want to cover. A couple extra plays that I do want to hit. But before we do that, I need your thoughts on... This is going to be abstract, so hear me out. you can see just a massive block of text right here. This is the contextualization that you need. This is Octagon MMA, right? And I'm gonna butcher this, but if I'm correct, I don't think Octagon is Russian. I think it's like Polish, if I'm actually correct. But I like watching their fights. These are the guys that you see who do the fake sponsorship tattoos all over their body, right? And all it's saying is, hey, we want to give some fighters the opportunity to move on and explore other options. We thank them for the journey that we've had together, and we wish them all the best for the future. Now imagine the UFC, which they have done before, just said, all right, we're just going to cut like 30 fighters, just boom, just like straight up, everybody on this list, you're done. I don't even know how many this is, but I'm going to say 30. I could be wrong. This could be like 40. This could be closer to that, right? My question to you is this, man. The UFC, and as you can see, I'm looking all through this line, right? The UFC is what we deem to be the pinnacle of what mixed martial arts is on a global scale. Now, you have a couple of competitors. You got the PFL, right, who has acquired Bellator. So now it feels like the Bellator fighters really are just an afterthought to what the PFL system wants it to be. You have all the other regional promotions that are all scattered throughout. But the reality is there's a lot of these promotions who aren't viable businesses. The UFC has been the sole promotion who's been able to do this thing for 30 years going. And of course, they had to have bailouts. They had to do the whole thing. If you know the UFC story, you get it. My question to you, the reason I bring this up is, people talk about the monopoly of the UFC and how they're unfair and don't pay their fighters, da-da-da-da-da. But the promotions who do things a little bit differently and open more contracts and do all of this stuff, right, often find themselves in this position where they can't pay the fighters, or they do get the fighters and then they got to cut massive amounts of fighters. Is the UFC truly the only business model right now that is going to be lucrative enough to maintain this model and keep their fighters? Or are we going to see this for the PFLs? Is Bellator going to go out of business completely and be extinct? Is there going to be anybody who can give the UFC a run for their money, AJ? That's the question that I'm asking you here. What do you think?
At the moment, Derek, I don't think so. The only thing that I think will change that is when Uncle Dana finally decides to retire. And I'm hoping he won't. I'm hoping Dana goes till the day he dies, because we're able to see money keep going into the UFC and be the show that it is, that it has grown to. Because you're right. If you take a lesson, you take an ear to old Uncle Chael as well. He'll tell you, man, if you're in promotion, you're basically just going into a money sink. So a lot of these promotions that are out there, right, that are just scattered across the world, they're not making any money. Nobody's making any money. Everybody's fighting for gas money. So there's a lot out there that people don't see. And I think the UFC is the business model that's going to continuously provide at least somewhat financial stability for fighters moving forward, looking to make something out of their life until they hit that big moment and they can become a star.
I think that's a very fair play right there. And while you do want to see more competition and you want to see better pay and, you know, all of that stuff, right? At the end of the day, you don't want to see your favorite promotion be like, we just cut 40 fighters, right? Because that's a big hit, even to the UFC, who has hundreds and hundreds of fighters and they're constantly signing contender series fighters. There's people, I mean, you watch the sport for long enough, you're like, oh, remember that guy? Remember that guy who went on a run for like a crazy 8 months and then was never heard from again, right? Remember the guy who killed it for 2 years and then it's commonplace here, man. It happens. So, that's a fair point right there. One more point, AJ, and then we'll touch on a couple extra plays here. This was just hilarious to me, and I was like, we need more of this. This is the Endeavor Group, who owns the UFC, I think merged with TKO, and now it's all TKO entity, but it's WWE, UFC, and everyone's making a big fuss about it. AJ, we need this in the UFC. Ryzen, Hideo Tokoro, he says, I'll retire if I lose to this man right here. We just need a matchup. I don't even care about what I'm showing you here on the screen. What I care about is that we need these. We need dudes who will be, that was the WWE style, right? It was like, all right, loser leaves town match, right? I need to see Amanda Lemos, Virna Jandiroba, they're both Brazilians. Loser removes their Brazilian, country ship or whatever the case may be. I need to see some stakes. I need something real. Listen, I know it's goofy, it's WWE, this ain't the legitimacy of what martial arts is, but you gotta love a good story. That's gonna make people tune in. You can do a whole pay-per-view off of loser has to retire after this fight. What do you think?
I love it, Derek. Hey, you want to say this isn't MMA or this isn't martial arts? There's been times where if you go to a gym and there's a gym bully, man, people will get at him and he's not welcome back in the gym. Loser leaves. That's what happens out there in the real streets. So I like it. I mean, it might be WWE or at least in that case, but that happens in real life. And I like to see people draw a line in the sand and say, this is where I die or I go home. I like it.
All I'm going to say is this, man. If you're okay, and I'm not saying that you, the viewer right now, I'm not saying you are, but you have to be honest with yourself. If you're okay with a BMF belt, a made-up, make-believe belt that does not exist for any other purpose but promotion and to sell more tickets, but you're not okay with the loser leaves town match, you have some issues that you need to reconsider. That's all I'm saying. Because if there's anybody who has ever come up to me or to you, AJ, and who would try to legitimately defend the BMF belt, I will laugh him out the room, and I imagine you would do the same thing because it means nothing, it does nothing, and it's just promotional nonsense. So I'm all for the promotional nonsense, baby. Let's get it. Let's get some more of it. All right, AJ, as promised, like I said, we're still in the news and notes section, I guess, right? But I did really want to just take another quick look at just a couple of these prelims because there are a few plays that I thought were interesting, and we got probably about another 2-3 minutes that we could rattle off. So first play that I wanted to talk about, you've already touched on it, Miranda Maverick versus Dione Barbosa. A lot of people think that Barbosa is definitely going to have the edge on the feet here, but if Miranda Maverick can get this fight to the ground, which we know generally speaking, man, takedown average 2.49 right there, 2.5, let's call it, I think that Miranda Maverick easily gets the job done right here. The question is, if you're a Miranda Maverick backer right here, are you betting the house at minus 220? Is that too steep of a price for you to pay? Because I know you like the price on the money line, but you parlayed it. So is this too steep of a price by itself?
It was a little too steep of a price itself to make this like a prop lock, Derek. I love Miranda Maverick, but we've seen her, if she can't get the fight to the ground, right? If Barbosa is able to keep her at bay a little bit, and Barbosa's all right, man. To Barbosa's right, she is dangerous on the ground as well. But I think the control from Maverick's going to be what does the majority of getting the points. But if she can't get this fight, man, that's what worries me a little bit right here. That's why I'm throwing this in a parlay.
Fair play. Shout out to the Miranda Maverick backers right there. Another one right here along a similar vein, if you will. Luana Carolina versus Lucy Pudilova. Now, this is a really interesting one, again, because I truly do believe right here, if you look at the numbers, it's close to a coin flip. But I think Pudilova, if she gets this fight to the ground, it's a very similar contest right here. I think that she could dominate this fight if she can get it to the ground. I think that Carolina, I bet on her. I've won, I've lost. It's been an inconsistent up and down roller coaster. She's very, very talented, very skilled. I just think Pudilova, for whatever reason, doesn't quite get the love that she probably deserves. I think it's going to be a close fight, but I definitely think at minus 105, I would be willing to look at Pudilova as the rightful favorite in this matchup. What do you think?
I like Pudilova in this fight so much, Derek. And the problem is with Carolina, she's so unknowing of what's actually going to happen. She can come in and dominate like we've seen her do in previous fights, or she can come in and just stay stagnant and look in that deer in a headlight style. And you don't know what you're going to get on the fight night. And I do think Pudilova is a more consistent style of fighter.
Fair play. All right. This one right here, AJ, I have one question for you. Muhammad Usman versus Thomas Peterson. And I'm actually going to bring us on over to this screen to ask you the question. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 210. Do you hammer that? Do you take a sledgehammer and smash that all day long? Because we know Muhammad Usman will definitely get the fight to the ground and do a lot of not much for the duration of the fight. Thomas Peterson came in, lost to Jamal Pogues, I think, in his debut. People aren't very high on this matchup. I believe that's why they took the heavyweight fight and made it literally the first fight of the night. We always say there's a reason for being the first fight of the night, and normally it's a positive connotation. AJ, I do not think that's the reason this go around. Do we smash the over 2.5 at minus 210?
We do, Derek. I mean, we do. I mean, if you go and you look at Peterson's numbers, he does have a lot of finishes. But when you have a bruiser like a blanket like Muhammad Usman going in and fighting, it's hard to not fight his style because he's just going to keep putting that pressure on you.
Yep. So let's see. Lost to McParkin, decision to Collier, decision to Tafa. Did get that knockout over Pauga, but Pauga's not a real heavyweight. And then he lost by submission in the PFL. Decision to Pogues, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, submission in the Contender Series. Knockout in LFA. But it's like you step into the big show and immediately, and look, he got knocked out by Waldo Cortez Acosta right there. So Cortez Acosta, who has found some power, isn't known as being the most powerful heavyweight. And then Jamal Pogues right there. I'm a fan of Pogues, but he has definitely been getting the short end of the stick when it comes down to the MMA treatment, if you will. All right, so to kind of round us out here, AJ, I think, let me see what else we got. I think that's everything to cover. This is the last one that I'd want to talk about, but the odds are too close now for me to give this any real consideration. I mean, okay. Trey Ogden is a tough character to bet on, right? So that's the reason why you see me just kind of like take a second. Because on one hand, you might say, oh, upside play, Trey Ogden, for sure. And like this dude's grappling is legit. For Rajabov, apologies, I know this dude. I don't know why. I just forgot how to say his name all of a sudden. A lot of people are saying if you look at this number, minus 115, that is a fantastic ticket price to play for him, who arguably should be the better fighter pretty much in all respects, man. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are about this, because like I said, the numbers are too close for me to give this any real consideration now. But before, when the odds were flipped a little bit in the open for whatever they were, a lot of people were saying Radzaboyev. What is Radzabov? That sounds terrible. Loik. I'm just going to call him Loik, bro, and keep it pushing. What you got, AJ?
I'm glad you messed it up first, Derek, because I was reading as Rudzaboyev and I knew I was wrong. No, I almost made this a sleeper, Derek, because of how interesting this fight can go, right? I like Trey Ogden. I actually think Trey Ogden should be more of a heavier favorite on this one with the style of wrestling he has, but a lot of people are on Radzabov for just the dominating potential that he can present, right? Like going forward, if Radzabov is able to control this fight, he's going to have a lot of options at him, whereas Trey Ogden can really only work in that wrestling game. But what I was breaking down when I was looking at this one, I think this is going to come down to a dog fight right here. Who's more of a dog in the moments when it actually matters? And I think that's Trey Ogden.
You might be right about that, man. Like I said, Trey Ogden is the dude who's been a little up and down on my trajectory right there, but this dude is definitely skilled. I just think that he's a guy who doesn't talk a lot, so he gets overlooked, and that's just the name of the game. So, folks, for your news and for your notes, those were some additional notes, some additional plays for you right there. We made it to another outro. First and foremost, we appreciate you guys. I think that that's the number one thing that we got to say. Loyalty, gratitude, the whole nine. The Bloody Water Podcast brings value, and that's what we're here to do, and we're here to stay week in and week out. But without any further ado, AJ, you know what you do. You take us out of here very well, so go ahead, my man.
Derek said it best, folks. We appreciate you. We love you for being here. And as always, we know you're winning money. I want to touch on the consensus picks, because if you're just betting the consensus pick, folks, you're making money week in and week out. You don't even need to, look at anything else, right? Take your screenshot. But I'm glad you're here right now, because we're your favorite fighters, favorite fight show, making you money. Make sure you hit us up in those comments. We got things coming for you, folks. It's going to be a very fun weekend.
Get ready. Next week, we got more bangers in store. But for the time being, have some fun. Be safe. We'll catch you on the flip side. Until next time, folks. Peace.